Hello, welcome to Podcast versus Player. My name is Cam. We've got another review for you today, and it is this, the NYXI Flexi controller, which was very kindly sent to us by NYXI, but in no way influenced what I think of the product. NYXI are no strangers to providing controllers at competitive prices, and their Hyperion Pro, which we previously reviewed, is still my go-to Joy-Con replacement for Nintendo Switch. I was very excited when they offered to send their newest controller, the Flexi, for a review. So whilst this is a controller in the same vein as a lot of other controllers on the market, so it supports Nintendo Switch, PC, Mac, Android, iOS, what sets this apart is the ability to change the left stick and D-pad around so the sticks are either symmetrical or asymmetrical, a la Xbox or PlayStation. Swapping the controls around is really easy. You literally just take the fascia off, which is magnetic. So on the inside, you've got these magnets, and then you literally just give that a pull, comes straight off, whip it around, chuck it back in. Dead easy. On top of that, the mechanical micro switch ABXY button caps can be swapped out to the Nintendo layout, and this can all be done during a game. A nice little touch is the keycaps have a little groove, so the letter is always symmetrical. Hot swapping works incredibly easily, and the removable magnetic fascia is easy to remove and reattach, and it snaps back on with a satisfying click. But currently there are no other fascias available in order to customize the look. I assume that might be something that changes later on down the line, but for now it is just the silver version of it that you can get. NYXI also throw in some extra keycaps as well, presumably for if you lose some. Connecting to PC via the 2.4 GHz dongle is simple. Plug it in and turn it on and it'll automatically pick up the Flexi. For Nintendo Switch, you just hold the B and home buttons and it will show as a Pro controller. And finally for mobile, hold the A and home buttons simultaneously to turn on the controller, and the Flexi will show as an Xbox wireless controller in the Bluetooth device list. Latency is basically non-existent using the 2.4 GHz dongle. And connecting to PC, NYXI have done a great job with the 1000 Hz polling rate, and even though Bluetooth has a much lower polling rate at 100 Hz, I had no issues on Android and Switch. Design-wise, while the Hyperion Pro Joy-Cons adopted a gorgeous GameCube-style design, the Flexi I'm not overly in love with. It's comfortable to hold for the most part, but we'll get on that later. I'm just not a big fan of the honeycomb grille, which highlights the RGB, but it just feels like it's begging to be a magnet for dust and sweat. Those that love RGB and the gaming mice that heralded the honeycomb aesthetic might love it, but it's not for me. NYXI's Master P1 has a much more subtle design to it, and I do prefer that over the Flexi's brass arrangement. Mechanical micro switch ABXY keys all feel nice and snappy, whilst the D-pad sounds clicky, but it appears to be a membrane one. However, it is responsive, but there is a little bit of movement regardless of what direction you're pressing, so accidental inputs are sadly going to happen from time to time. Testing via the gamepad input tester, the Hall Effect sticks have a fantastic snapback response and an average circularity error rate of 0.1%. The bad news, however, is they have fixed dead zones, which are set at 10% for the inner edges and 20% for the outer edges. Essentially, while the outer doesn't matter too much, the 10% inner edge means you need to move the sticks quite a bit before it registers on screen into game, and this isn't adjustable either. To be clear, the sticks are responsive and they feel good, but if you're like me, you're a player that makes a lot of micro camera adjustments in game, you will notice. Like the D-pad, the shoulder buttons are membrane, but they are pretty responsive, although I would have loved to have seen some mechanical buttons. The triggers, while they get bonus points for being Hall Effect and really responsive, lose a point for being so bizarrely angled and almost pointy, which is a shame as they perform really well, they're just uncomfortable after a while. It's not as ergonomic as I found my natural resting point on my fingers being right on the point of the odd angle. It's frustrating as the rest of the controller feels really solid in your hands. There's also no trigger locks either, sadly. Considering the excellent 1000 Hz wireless stability and performance, it's a real shame to be let down by uncomfortable triggers and dead zones on an otherwise comfortable controller. You have 4 remappable buttons on the back, all of which are easy to reach, but the same limitation I found with the Easy SMX X20 are present here, by only being able to map face buttons. Again, for certain games this might be beneficial for you, but for me I prefer being able to use the additional buttons for things like camera sensitivity on the fly. There is also gyroscopic movement available, but this functionality is only supported on switch mode. Some software would be really beneficial in order to customize the Flexi for both macro settings as well as potentially being able to adjust the dead zones. But sadly, this isn't the case, at least not for the moment. Whether NYXI comes out with some in the future remains to be seen, but hopefully they will. I really wanted to love the Flexi. I'm a huge fan of the Hyperion Pro and the NYXI Wizard controllers, so I was a bit let down with the newest entry. It's not a bad controller by any means, it does perform very, very well, but the design of the triggers and non-adjustable dead zone really let down an otherwise great controller. I love that NYXI are looking at ways in order to cater to a wider variety of people, and there are enough gamers that feel strongly about what layout is best, Xbox or PlayStation, particularly when you're jumping from platform to platform. And the Flexi shows you can cater to both markets. It just needs more refinement on the next version. If you want to see more, you can go to podcastversusplayer.com. It's all going along at the bottom of the screen, and we'll see you on the next one. Thank you. Goodbye.